All right. I don't want to be talking too long, but I do need to welcome you all, dear friends, colleagues, to this special celebration. You're very special to me and to us at CITI. Uh, it's by invitation only because we don't want to be exclusive, but we want to be personal for people to know each other. Uh, it's been a long road, a fun road. Every step was interesting, really. It really was exciting. For CITI, 43 years. For me at Columbia, 50 years, believe it or not. Uh, and for me in this world, 80 years almost. And so it's kind of time to lower the load. How did all this start? In high school, I built radios. I was that kind of a guy. In college, I was going to study electrical engineering. That's how I kind of started at Harvard thinking of that. But it was not a good time in the late 60s at Harvard to in electrical engineer was not a good way to meet girls. Uh, just look at the super nerds that followed me, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg a few years later. I didn't want to be like that, which in hindsight was probably a major strategic mistake, but a happy one. So, so then I studied economics and law, and after that, in already in at Columbia, things came together. They didn't start that way, but they came together, and I kind of integrated my love for the electronic world. That was before it was called the digital world, to with economics and with law, and the timing was really good. It was just before the AT&T breakup, which was huge and changed everything. The emergence of cable television that changed the network broadcast system, the emergence of microcomputers. I had the very first word processor at the Columbia Business School. It was kind of like an airplane cockpit. You sat in it. People came from all over the school to look at it, to say this will never work. Uh, and it didn't, by the way. Not at least not that model. My first article in the on the subject was on competition between cable and telecom. There were these two monopolies, and they were totally apart. And people saw a problem here, people saw a problem there, but they did not put them together. And so I said, why not kind of think of them as competitors in each other's business, video and voice telephony and telephony. And people said, yeah, particularly from the industry, this is a good idea, professor. And when people say professor, they usually mean ivory tower, kind of like it's a good idea in theory, but the reality is tree and branch architecture and all that and star architecture will never work. And now see what happened. Okay, it worked. And then I met also John Hopley. Is his son here? Okay, no, but John passed away. John was in the Bell system, but he was kind of like a rebel, a subversive inside, and he kind of showed me who to talk to and in other parts of the industry, and so we kind of started to conspire, and we kind of so there was a conference, and then it became a program, and then it became a center, and then it became a institute. And then the Sloan Foundation adopted us as a national center. So things, so this was all happening. And it's important for us to recognize how kind of what didn't exist at the time, and we didn't even know that. There was no cell phones, really. There were no flat screens. There were no PCs. What was that? There was no public internet. There was nothing online. There was no real public email. There were no CDs. There was the Macintosh was just coming in. There was no Amazon. There was no Zoom. There was no Netflix. In short, at least for somebody like my good friend Jonathan Haidt at NYU, I think it was kind of the golden age. I mean, there was kind of like children were not distracted. They followed their parents and their teachers. They did their homework. They were kind of diligent. And then came all these things that we have been doing together and kind of diverted them. So there was a lot of things to study. But we were never a big budget operation, despite what our dear dean said, I mean, it was possible that we raised some money, but that just means the other people didn't. So it was based mostly on voluntarism and a nonprofit spirit, entrepreneurial, students, intern, paid, paid RAs, a small paid staff. And when I say paid, it is probably an overstatement. So there were several core principles. One, we would not work for anybody because this environment is a snake pit. So we didn't want to be involved in that. The second, we never did consulting or project work, paid or dedicated work. A second core principle was not to be dependent on any source. And so there were many companies, really many companies and foundations that supported us, but none that kind of had a dependency relationship. We loved them, loved getting small amounts of money, but if that went away, I mean, we would not be affected. And the third principle was open-minded and non-ideological. When we started the project, we didn't know where it would end, what the conclusion was, and that is somewhat, it seems obvious, but it's not obvious anymore in academia, unfortunately. So that kind of created some credibility, we hope, and we got affiliations from all kinds of the industry and from many countries, 15 countries, and our themes moved from telecom to internet to content to, and now recently crypto and metaverse and AI. But we had kind of dedicated people, not much money, but dedicated people. One of them is trying to get me off the podium here. So I will pay tribute to them later, but Jason, you have a choice. I can pay tribute to you now.
Do one on trucks.
Okay. Jason Buckwright and Corey Spencer in particular. The others I will recognize later. They've been here for 15 years. Nobody else could endure me for so long, except my dear wife, Nadine, hopefully. So these three carried much of the ball for this celebration too. Jason and Corey made CITI. They ran CITI and they were CITI with me. I cannot start to express my gratitude to their competency and dedication. And they also helped me enormously in my most recent book, which literally arrived a few minutes ago. And is there a copy for everyone here as a gift? And so today the daytime conference will be perhaps more about the issues and CITI. The evening will be more about me and its director. The two overlap, so you will hear about me, and I should be quiet. Yes, Jason. And right now, let's get started. Thank you very much.